the standard on auditing 500 series, and first essay is SA 500 audit evidence. Now first of all we will be covering scope of this standard. That is, this essay explains what constitute audit evidence. First of all we will be covering what is the meaning of audit evidence. Then why an auditor needs audit evidence. This essay explains what constitute audit evidence in an audit of financial statement and deals with the auditor's responsibility towards to design and perform audit procedure. There can be two types of audit procedures broadly. First one, risk assessment procedure that are covered in SA 330 and SA 315, test of control and substantive procedures. And why these procedures will be required? To obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. First of all, I told you this essay explains what is the meaning of audit evidence. We will be covering in next slide. After that, to obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence. What is the meaning of sufficiency and appropriateness of audit evidence? This area is covered in SA 500. Then why this appropriateness and sufficiency required for audit evidence? To be able to draw reasonable conclusion. SA 200 defines that auditor should require reasonable conclusions. These reasonable conclusions will be based on the audit evidence which will auditor draw during the audit. And what are those features of audit evidence? Those features are given in SA 500. On which to base the auditor's opinion. Opinion can be modified, disclaimer, auditor can give a disclaimer opinion, qualified, unqualified opinion, whatever. So again, to repeat, scope of this essay. Scope means this essay what will cover this standard. This essay will cover, explains first of all what constitute audit evidence. That means what is the meaning of audit evidence, why this evidence are required in an audit of financial statement, and deal with auditor's responsibility. Responsibility towards what? To design and perform audit procedures. Which kind of audit procedures? Risk assessment procedure, test of control and substantive procedure. Those are given in SA 315 and SA 330. Why auditor needs to perform these procedures? To obtain sufficient and appropriate audit evidence. Now the question arises, what is the meaning of sufficiency and appropriateness? That we will be covering in next slide. And why these are required? To be able to draw reasonable conclusion on the financial statement of the company for whom we are doing the audit. And what will be happen when we draw the reasonable conclusion? On these conclusions, auditor will be able to make his opinion on financial statement, whether these financial statements are okay or not. He will draw his true and fair view. Now we are taking this meaning of audit and evidence. What constitute audit evidence? What is the meaning of audit evidence? So next slide is audit evidence. The first information used by the auditor in arriving at the conclusions on which the auditor's opinion is based. All the informations which auditor is using during the audit, those all information are called audit evidence. Now what can be these all information? These can be financial, non-financial, like books of account, cash book, journal, day books, minutes of the company, external confirmation from debtors, from bank, etc., third-party confirmation. All these informations that are required during the auditor, which information auditor is taking to mark his conclusion, that is called audit evidence. Information used by auditor in arriving at the conclusion. Which type of conclusion? We just read reasonable conclusion. On which? On the financial statements of company, on which the auditor's opinion is based. Opinion, true and fair opinion. Audit evidence include information contained in the account records, like I just said, cash book, day book, debtors, creditors, balance, underlying the financial statement, and other information. Other information can be external party information, minutes of the company, etc. So what is the meaning of audit evidence? All the information, whether financial, non-financial, of the company, which are used during the audit for auditor to reach on conclusion on which auditor's opinion is based. That is called audit evidence. I am again repeating, audit evidence can be financial in nature and non-financial in nature. Minutes of the company, external confirmation, balance confirmation, all these are types of audit evidence. Now we read on the first slide that audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate. So in next slide we are covering that what is the meaning of sufficiency and appropriateness. So I am moving to next slide. What is the meaning of sufficiency of audit evidence? The scope of this essay covers that audit evidence must be sufficient and appropriate to draw reasonable conclusion on which auditor's opinion is based. So we are covering this topic, sufficiency of audit evidence. What is the sufficiency? Sufficiency is generally quantity. If the population of the auditor is high, so we can draw maximum quantity, we can draw maximum audit evidence to give our opinion on the financial statement. The measure of the quantity. Now what are the factors which affect the quantity? The factors can be auditor's assessment of risk of material misstatement and quality of audit evidence. What is the meaning of this? If the auditor makes conclusion that population of this audit is diversified, heterogeneous, and the risk on the material misstatement is high, so he will choose higher number of quantity of audit evidence. He will check more and more documents to reach on the conclusion on which his audit opinion is based. And next one is quality. Quality means relevance and reliability, which we will be covering in next slide. Sufficiency means quantity And what is the features of quality of audit evidence? That is relevance and reliability of that audit evidence, which we are covering in next slide. Relevance and reliability. Relevance deals with the logical connection or bearing upon the purpose of audit procedure which appropriate the assertion under the conclusion. Means if we are doing the audit of assessment year 13, 23, 24, so those document audit evidence should be relevant to those assessment year also. And if we are doing the company of XYZ company, then which evidences we are using, on which our opinion is based, those evidences documents must be connected with that company. So this is relevance. Those audit evidence must be connected, relevant to that company and that time period also. Now, what is the meaning of reliability? Reliability must be based upon source and nature. This SA 500 audit evidence describes the situation when an audit evidence can be called as reliable and relevant. So, reliability depends on its source and nature. How can this be? We are moving to next slide. For reliability, so reliability of audit evidence is increased when it is obtained from the independent sources, like out of the organization, like I just said, SA 505 external confirmation, that is independent source. Next, reliability of audit evidence that is generated internally is increased when the related control over its perception, preparation, and maintenance imposed by the entity are effective. That means if we are using an audit evidence that is internal, that is of the organization for whom we are doing the audit, that will be reliable only when those organizations' internal control are robust and operative. Next, audit evidence obtained directly by the auditor. Obviously, this can be more reliable if I am using a mediator to bring the audit evidence. That will be less reliable than if I am directly getting this confirmation. Next is audit evidence in documentary form that is written, that will be more reliable. Last one, audit evidence provided by original document will be more reliable than the photocopies, etc. So this is the overview of standard on auditing 500. Thank you.